If you own Bitcoin and talk about it often, chances are you're getting a lot of similar questions, especially during Bitcoin bull markets. They can come from your best friends, your taxi driver, or even your grandmother. Should I buy Bitcoin now? Is it a good time to buy Bitcoin? Is this a good price to buy Bitcoin? Does any of this sound familiar? In this video, I'm going to try to give you the most accurate answer to those questions, so don't go anywhere. Oh, and by the way, it doesn't matter if you watch this in 2022 or 2025. It's always going to be relevant. And if you haven't already, then don't forget to subscribe to the Crypto Potato channel for more content like this. But before we dive into this video, you should know that I'm not a financial advisor and none of this is financial advice. The content is for educational and entertainment purposes only, and you should always carry out your own research and not risk investing more than you can afford to lose. Now, should you buy Bitcoin and how to do it? Those questions relate to buying Bitcoin, but they're relevant for all other investments too. If you decide to buy Bitcoin, you should know why and when to do it. Investors should carefully examine all of their investments, especially those as speculative, volatile, and highly risky as Bitcoin. These days, most people hold Bitcoin rather than use it as a payment method. So, what is it that makes Bitcoin unique? Who controls BTC and its value? How many Bitcoins are there and how many will there ever be? Why was Bitcoin invented? And how does one store Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies? Now, if you don't know how to answer one or more of those questions, you should start conducting some serious research on what Bitcoin is. First things first. The first thing to know about Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies is that they're a speculative investment. If stocks and equities are considered the riskiest of all traditional investments, then Bitcoin constitutes its own category of risk. And guess what? An asset whose price spikes 2,000% in the year 2017 and plunges 70% the following year is pretty risky. The same can be said about BTC's price from March 2020. The COVID crash, until the top reached in November 2021. It spiked from below $4,000 to over $69,000 in a matter of 20 months. And then it crashed by over 50% in the following 2 months. Therefore, you should always keep both scenarios in mind when investing, particularly the worst case possibilities. With Bitcoin, this scenario is that it goes to zero. Before making a decision, you should be absolutely certain that you can tolerate that kind of risk. If losing 90% of your initial investment sounds like too much for you, consider reducing the amount you intend to buy. In light of this, there are many predictions about Bitcoin's price. On the bullish spectrum, there are some who believe that it will reach $1 million in 10 to 20 years from now. Ask yourself, do you want your kids to ask you why you didn't buy Bitcoin when it was affordable? Do you want to be out of this investment? On the bearish spectrum, some investors believe that it's going to $0 and completely refuting all of Bitcoin's merits. Are you willing to risk your investment? If after all of this you're convinced that you want to buy, then let's explore the best way to do so. DCA, the best way to buy Bitcoin. You're not a fortune teller who knows when to buy and when to sell. Neither am I. In other words, we can't time the market. For that reason, wise men invented the DCA method. DCA stands for dollar cost averaging. In simple words, it's an accumulation strategy in which you divide your total deserved purchase amount into equal sized portions at regular time intervals. This can be once a week, once a month, once a quarter, or whenever is best for you. The main advantage of using this method is that you'll be less worried about the current price because you'll get an average based on all of your purchases. The strategy is perfect for long-term investments and it's highly recommended for volatile assets such as Bitcoin since the purchase price gets averaged over time. Another advantage of this method is that it's very suitable for ongoing investments. such as putting a small portion of one's salary every month. The nice thing about Bitcoin is that, unlike stocks and equities, it can be bought for any amount of fiat currency, and there's no minimum purchase requirement. The disadvantage of the DCA method is that the profit is not maximized during bull market conditions. However, throughout history of Wall Street, for example, there have been many periods when a DCA investment yielded a higher profit than a lump sum investment. Another potential disadvantage is the persistence required to constantly purchase a fixed amount of Bitcoin over time, as it can always be tempting to buy larger amounts. But to put it into perspective, if you'd bought as little as $1 worth of Bitcoin every day for the past 9 years, you'd have invested a total of $3,287 in BTC, which would currently be worth around $200,000. Of course, Bitcoin was very cheap back in 2013, so let's see a more realistic example. Meet Joe. Joe has a net monthly salary of $5,000. Let's imagine that he's decided to invest 5% of this in Bitcoin once a month since he first heard about it 3 years ago in 2019. Doing this for 5 years would have meant that Joe invested a total of $9,000, which would now be worth $25,593, 184.38% ROI. But if he started doing so 5 years ago, he would have invested $15,000, which would currently be worth $77,000, a return of more than 400%. Now, both results demonstrate a considerable return despite the fact that Bitcoin's price crashed by more than 50% from its all-time high in November 2021. Of course, it's also possible for your investment to be underwater, i.e. losing at certain periods of time. But the DCA strategy is beneficial in such events as well because you'll have a close average to the current price. This naturally doesn't account for black swan events, where the price of an asset crashes by, for example, 50% in a day. Nobody can be constantly prepared for this. But even if it happens, if you keep buying under the DCA strategy, your average entry will reduce as well, putting your buying price closer to the current price. The moral of this story is that the earlier you adopt a DCA strategy, the higher your ROI is likely to be, as the risk of buying at a relatively high price, like in April or November in 2021, is minimized over time. DCAing allows one to average down their purchase price. Now, DCAing is not limited to Bitcoin. You can apply this strategy to every investment, keeping in mind that it's best suited for investors who are looking to make long-term plays over several years. Now, the next time someone asks about how or when to buy Bitcoin, you know the answer to give. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to know when our next video goes live. And drop those comments below about what you think of the DCA method. And until next time, see ya.